All right, moving on to item 10B, board member request discussion regarding bylaws for School Health Advisory Council. That was me. For clarity, there in public comments, there was a mention about me, something under my breath. These mics, this is just me, this is my practice, but as a board president, I feel like it's important to have my mic on the entire time. I just do, because sometimes people will lean over and ask me questions, and I'm okay with it being picked up. So sometimes it's considered a hot mic, but I still believe in that ultimate transparency. And so when we were talking about the cell phone policy, we were talking at the time it was coming to us for the first time, the SHAC was bringing it to us. We needed to assign a committee that was made up of all types of different professionals. And yeah, I made the comment saying I'm not going to allow 12 people to just come up here and suggest a policy without a committee and without some research done. So that's what that was about. What they didn't hear was the question that was asked to me, which is fine. So I'm just trying to provide some clarity as to what it was that I was saying. And I wholeheartedly believe in community and believe in allowing the community to support, and fortunately it worked out very well, because I think we all got emails, or even earlier this week, about how the cell phone policy is working, that teachers are appreciative of it, and it was because of the work of that entire committee. Whether or not those same 12 people are on that committee makes no never mind to me. It was the process that we used, so I stand wholeheartedly behind that. Leading from that to the SHAC bylaws, there was a couple of things. We all got the email earlier this week from Ms. Gladys and some things that she had recommended to us. And I just think that it is our job as the school board to provide some clarity for the different subcommittees that report to us. And I've witnessed a few things online. I've watched the videos and I've received some emails, and I think that it would be very helpful that we provided the SHAC the actual bylaws. Now, that does not in any form mean that I don't support or agree with the work that the SHAC committee is doing, because I wholeheartedly believe in it and I support it, and I think that the goals that they have are certainly great goals, and what they're trying to help are extremely important. What my point is we never approved any bylaws, and it's not necessarily something that we do to every committee, but whenever we all got the email from Ms. Gladys, there were some glaring issues that I think that the SHAC committee would appreciate some guidance from the board. So I wanted to open that up and see what people's thoughts were about that, and I've obviously got some suggestions as well, but that's where I wanted to start the conversation.
Well, the first thing I would say is that the one thing that's different about the SHAC is that it's a council. It's not a committee. So it is something that is different from other committees that serve under the board. They're an independent council. Second thing, you said they might serve from some guidance. Then maybe we should as well, and that is why this has been filed with the AG's office, asking for guidance on our authority to make decisions on the bylaws, stating the bylaws. As a board, we ask for guidance to find out if we actually have that authority. So maybe we should take some guidance from them on does the board actually have the legal right to define the bylaws for the SHAC.
Section 28004, Local School Health Advisory Council and Health. The Board of Trustees of each school district shall establish a local school health advisory council to assist the direction in ensuring the local community values are reflected in the district's health educational instruction. School district must consider the recommendations of a local school health advisory council before changing the district's health education curriculum and instruction, and then give some recommendations on how to achieve that. Are you saying that council is different than a subcommittee, and that therefore it warrants that we as a board, as an elected board, do not have the authority to oversee an advisory council that is to advise us on, and they're just giving advice? Is that what you're...
I am stating that the council, the SHAC, the Student Health Advisory Council, is different than a committee that serves under our direction.
And how so?
Because it's stated in 28.004 that the council is to operate as its own entity separate and will bring their recommendations to the board, but it's only a recommendation. We have the authority on what actions to take it under advisement, to modify it or even consider it, and then to act in some way different. The council, the whole purpose for that organization, that council to be created was to give the community of parents and community members, and in conjunction with employees and staff members, but the parent a seat at the table. In 28.004, it does not state that that the board writes the bylaws for them. It does not state that we have to approve their bylaws. It's how they operate. It's not how we operate.
I'm going to back up. So what did you do here? What is this?
We filed for guidance from A.G. Paxton's office on, do we have the authority?
When you say we, it says Melissa Dungan, Tiffany Nelson, and I.
Mr. Yodenwiller, you'll see it signed in there, all of it.
I saw that. So you went to the AG for
Right.
guidance? Did you go to Ms. Gladys?
Ultimately, he's our authority. I did go to Ms. Gladys. I asked her numerous times if she was advising us as a board, or was she advising us as the district? And the bottom line was, we asked for guidance from the AG on, do we have the authority to write bylaws for the SHAC?
And so I asked outside counsel.
Oh, you had outside counsel?
We all have access to outside counsel.
I asked you about that before the
No, ma'am, you
board
didn't.
meeting.
You said bring them, and I said no, but we all have access to outside
But did you tell me I could reach out to outside counsel in lieu of this? That you knew that you could reach out? I don't even have an outside counsel. I've asked about that before.
Ms. Gladys, do we all have access to Ms. Ellen Spalding?
Actually, you do as the,
I do? Okay, well, I apologize. So I have access to outside counsel. So I called her, and she said, you are 100% able to set bylaws. And I'm not looking for a fight by any stretch. I had no idea that you wanted to go to the Attorney General to make a big stink about this. I was just saying, look, there's things going on that I don't necessarily agree with in the bylaws. And so I'm actually confused as to why this is such a big deal. I mean, we have purview to be able to set the bylaws on how a committee that is reporting to us is going to work. Like what assignment do we want to give them? Those are the types of things. But I'm
Council or committee?
Mr. President, I will question that we could have revised maybe a policy that we just approved in a consent agenda that we rubber stamped, as I said earlier. Like you literally just approved policy EHAA in the consent agenda.
okay.
If you wanted to make a change to how their bylaws are written, maybe we could have put it in that policy that was in the consent agenda.
Why would I put that in the consent agenda?
Why did you put the policy?
Look,
You could have pulled that policy approval out and made your argument
Guys.
that we revised this policy.
look, to be honest, I've heard a whole lot more about the SHAC than I ever want to hear in a million years. Again, sitting here 12 years, hadn't heard this much about a SHAC.
That's unfortunate.
But back to my point, the tone of the discussion between the SHAC and the board seems very contentious. It's very difficult for a SHAC to be effective in advising the board when that tone of the dichotomy is there. I would just say this, I don't think we should, as a committee that's advising the board, and for lack of better language, we shouldn't let the tail wag the dog here, by any means. If you're gonna give advice, the advisement should be coming from a place where we trust that committee has formulated, come back with us with good information, has solicited the folks, and the committee makeup should be made up of folks that have not been chosen specifically by a select group. No need for us to beat around the bush. I think the SHAC is filled emboldened by a couple board members up here. I'm not saying one way or the other, but that's the feel that I get here. Can't say that for definite, but I definitely believe that's the case from where I sit. As it relates to the bylaws, Ms. Gladys, you have an opportunity to review these bylaws. Do you find any issues or any improvement that's necessarily needed to the bylaws of the SHAC committee that would help make it a little bit more, I guess everybody likes to say the buzzword, transparent, or conducive to what we're trying to accomplish as a committee that's advising the board?
Well, I shared some of the issues that have come up. I mean, the abundance of work that the committee is asking staff members.
Who are they asking
to
that,
I think the
Staff.
co-chair, staff.
why are we giving individual committees the ability to dictate to the
No,
staff?
no, it's a council.
I don't care what you call them. You can call them a board of judges or dictators, whatever you want to call them, I don't care. Why are we giving any committee the ability to dictate the work for our staff when we can't do that?
Can't, yes, we can. We can ask for any of
You
that.
can ask, but you don't get to dictate the work of staff. No board member. The board is a
Correct.
board. We don't act as individuals. I think we're losing sight of that. This is a board.
Mr. Williams, that's
Right.
public data that they're asking
This
for.
is a board. I don't care who. I don't care what it is. You don't add. You don't go on somebody's job just because you feel like it's public and ask a police officer to go run all these reports. You don't get to do that. You don't get to go to the fire station and say, "Give me the specifics of this fire truck. How many gallons of water it holds, et cetera, et cetera." He has a job to do. He gets directed from his direct reports.
Well, I think to your point, yes, we would certainly allow these things to happen. However, to Ms. Oldenweller's point, we do have the ability to ask staff to get information. Hear me out.
You get to
Hold on.
ask for anything.
But my
I
point
can
is-
ask right now, but you don't get to dictate the work of staff.
I understand, but my point is, however, if it's over a certain amount of hours, then
I don't care if it's 5 minutes. You do not get to dictate the directives of the staff. As a board member, as a SHAC committee, as a SHAC committee, you do not get to dictate that.
I'm not arguing against you. I'm just saying when they do ask for information, if we ask for that information, we have to report it in public meetings as to what we asked for and how many man hours it actually took. And the SHAC is not doing those things. And we're limiting, like we're appointing members to the SHAC committee, and then the SHAC committee is withdrawing their ability to have voting rights. And that's, I see that as a conflict. And then we have some members, I mean, the SHAC committee,
Let me clarify.
hold on a
Is
second,
that what we're doing?
the SHAC committee
The
says,
SHAC did remove, from what had been the past practice, they did remove voting rights for certain SHAC committee members that were employees of the district.
so the other part down here says the Board of Trustees
Dr.
shall,
Upshaw. Didn't we appoint Dr. Upshaw on that committee?
She's a co-chair.
she's a co-chair. So it says the Board of Trustees shall appoint at least 5 members to the local school health, which we did. A majority of the members must be persons who are parents of students enrolled in the district and who are not employed by the district. And we have some of those parents that are actually substitutes for Conroe ISD. So they are then employees of the district, which we didn't appoint them as employees of the district. We employed them as parents. And it says specifically in this own bylaws, or, I'm sorry, in the 28004, that you can't be both. Now, obviously, I don't want to keep anybody from having a job. I think, you certainly have that right to do so. But in doing so, you can no longer serve on the SHAC committee. So those are the types of things.
No, that's
I'm not
what it
trying
says.
for I'm not looking for a, complete 180. I think the work that's happened is great, but I'm saying we as a board need to put some guardrails on as to what the purview is in the bylaws and kind of enforce the bylaws.
I'm
President
That's all.
Hubert, putting aside the whole AG thing and whether we can or not, what would you like to be changed? Like what specific kind of recommendations would you have?
A couple of things. First of all, I want to make sure that the purview, which is, in 28004, that this is obviously upheld, right? So I certainly, that's my priority number one, just like I'm sure everybody else would as well. Info request, I think there should be some type of guideline for information requests.
Meaning what the SHAC is
Allowed to.
requesting from the
and
district.
that process, like, we have to follow a process. Hold on a
I
second,
need
we
to
have to follow a process. I think they should follow a process as well.
I'm thoroughly confused about these processes. or you allowing individual committee members to request stuff from folks and holding those folks accountable to get it to them? Because that should be coming from either you or the principals. Now, who's protecting our staff from us? I really need to understand it.
Presently, yes, that is what is occurring.
You have to stop that.
Well, that's
unacceptable.
part of what I want to
Unacceptable.
talk about.
Okay, and what else?
The goals, I think that the board should allow the goals and the scope and the goals and scope and the focus of what the SHAC committee should be working on as well. Now, obviously, we want input from the SHAC committee because they're boots on the ground and they're in front of the parents and they're, they have a vested interest, of course. But, if they've got, I think there's another thing in here about subcommittees.
Yeah, they have to have a physical fitness one.
Yeah, there's,
And
I apologize, I don't have it, I thought I had it
It's
highlighted.
the
but I-
physical fitness or
Is it the yeah,
something
but
like
there's,
that. Yeah.
there's 10 subcommittees. The SHAC has created 10 different subcommittees. All I'm saying is I think that everything they're doing is great, but let's rein it in and focus on what we all collectively agree. It's very similar. I mean, the statute has put this out. We also have a statute for safety and security. We also have a statute for the audit committee. I mean, these are committees or council, call it what you want, that we have purview to set the bylaws. And I think, I mean, honestly, I'm not sure the purpose of this, of the theatrics of giving it to me at a board meeting and blindsiding me. And Ms. Gladys, did you know this was coming?
No, sir.
This is, I believe
The
this is.
reason that was delivered
I was
to
not done talking.
My apology.
Without any notice to anybody on this board is highly inappropriate. We're a team. We're a team. We need to work like a team. And for the three of y'all to sign this and give it to us in the middle of a meeting is not sincere and is theatrics, and I'm highly offended that this would happen at a meeting like this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yes, to speak first.
I want to understand, are you telling the board that you want to limit the information that this council is able to get to do what they're set out to do?
You asked me that?
No, Mr. Hubert,
Because I love to answer that one.
I didn't ask you.
What I'm saying is, we need to give them some guidance on what they should be working on and how that information can be requested.
You're wanting to limit the amount of data
I
they
don't-
have to make decisions that bring recommendations
Ms.
to our
Duncan, I
board.
don't agree with how you're prefacing it. I don't.
Well, I don't agree with what
I
you're trying to
disagree.
do here.
What is it that you don't agree with?
I don't think it's wise or responsible to limit data that they need to do their job as a council. These are volunteer parents, volunteer community members.
Yeah.
Why would we ever try to make it harder for them to do what they're trying to accomplish?
Exactly. That's exactly what the teachers are telling me. They're trying to do what they came to accomplish, and we're inundating them with miscellaneous requests that have nothing to do with accomplishing the goals that the SHAC was set aside to do.
This data is likely not managed by teachers. This should be if it's
Administration.
not a reasonable request, I get that. But if this is data that we should probably already be keeping on hand to provide to, I mean, if needed, then it shouldn't take all these man hours.
How many hours is this stuff taking you guys, Dr. No? I'm thoroughly frustrated at the fact that we think we've empowered somebody. We think they're empowered.
That's the thing.
Whether it
They
be
think they're
board
empowered.
members
We
or
never did it.
SHAC committee or on arts and crafts committee, whoever it is, right? They volunteer, I don't care what you do, to come in the school district and dictate to various employees or administration information that they want because they want it without going through the proper protocols is absurd. From
They
a board
serve a
member, from a
purpose.
board member standpoint to anybody that's committed in a community standpoint, that's absurd. These people cannot function and be successful at what they're doing simply because we got agendas in various capacities, various areas, and we think we are empowered to carry out those agendas. Unacceptable. And this is, I'm thoroughly frustrated, once again, that we allow that to happen from an administrative standpoint.
Well, they don't, the administration, they're just doing what they think they're supposed to be doing. Like, my point is we didn't give them as a
See, you
board,
see-
we didn't put any guardrails on this thing.
No.
I don't want you to blame the administration for
I
responding to it.
Got to, because you see, we have this problem sometimes in corporate America. People take an org chart and they turn it upside down. They read it upside down, and they, for some reason, think they get to dictate below, right? Just like people come in my office sometimes with recommendation and advisement, right? But deep down, they're taking it as a dictate, right? So if I don't respond based on what they're telling me to do, they're disappointed because they didn't come in with the expectation that it's just a recommendation. Just like these committees and so forth bringing stuff to us, their expectation is for you to execute. And if you don't, right, you got a problem, right? And just like the org chart I just prefaced before, it clearly states that Dr. Noah reports to a board, not Datron Williams, right? Have I ever dictated to you what you do? Not my job. I don't go to people's classrooms, don't go to schools, and been in this district for 20-some years, don't dictate to anybody. From a parent standpoint, I got expectations. From a board member standpoint, I have none. Because without 4 votes, I'm just a taxpayer. And I'm tired of hearing people say, I'm a taxpayer, this is a district. Stop paying them. That's up to you. Everybody's a taxpayer. They don't give you any more rights than anybody else.
Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Odenweller, who wrote the brief requesting the information and the opinion from the AG? Who wrote this brief? That
My attorney.
who is that, please?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
The point is that I had to seek outside counsel because I wasn't allowed to have outside counsel by my president.
I didn't deny you outside counsel. I just said we're not bringing them to here. I would think it'd be more appropriate if you really feel like we need outside counsel.
Sir, when I
Let's
first was
bring it up.
elected and I asked this question, you told me that Carrie Galatis was our counsel and I didn't have any outside counsel.
Did I say that?
Yes, you did.
Did I said that? And you could
Yes.
generate that.
There's a very good possibility I put it in an email.
Yeah. What was my email?
I'd have to go back and look, but you did
Yes,
tell me
would.
that.
Actually, I did not. What I told you was we don't need outside counsel at this meeting. That is what I said. I didn't elaborate anything about you can't. and all
Remember
the
when you
other
just
stuff.
told me you weren't done talking? I wasn't done talking.
Finish your statement.
So,
Although I was still talking.
okay, go right ahead
Yeah,
then. You asked me and I answered and then
Yes.
I was
Correct.
at that point.
But I guess my question is the person that wrote this expecting payment from the district
No.
for their services? So
No.
they wrote it without any
Pro bono.
expectations? And they wrote it in for you, Trustee Nelson, and also
The three of them, yes.
Trustee Duncan?
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. And then the one thing that I wanted to talk about in regards to the SHAC was the only thing that I would like to change within the bylaws is a clearer presentation of their goals for the year, as well as what it is they're requesting. So if they're requesting information on students having disciplinary issues, what is it exactly that they're looking for versus asking a general blanket question without any real idea of what we're looking for? And so I would just like more clarity, more transparency on that so that the district knows and can get that information versus just blanket information without knowing the direction. So that's
Yeah.
all. Thank you.
I think it would be nice to have the goals and objectives, which for the most part are mandated, right? And then tied to that, the data requests, right? Like what kind of data do you need to be able to meet those goals and objectives?
That's it.
And then the only thing I would add, I think it's a good idea to have defined how this data request flows, right? So that
Exactly.
we're not
Yes.
Going
Inundating
off
people.
the hip to everyone, like it is really, like maybe one point of contact, then can take that and disperse it. I also think it's important because honestly, like I haven't even heard from the SHAC up until like the cell phone policy. So I think it would be good also to somehow formalize, how are we getting informed from the SHAC? Like, it has like a designated contact, right? But who is that? Like, is it the one co-chair? Is it the other co-chair? Like, how are we how are we understanding like what they're doing, right? I think I would like some formality, specificity, whatever you want to insert there.
Are the meetings online?
Yes.
But the committee meeting.
The subcommittees are not, though. The
The
subcommittees are not.
output.
Hey,
But in the last meeting, in answer to that about subcommittees and so forth, the SHAC, when they last met, they did make a discussion about doing a synopsis of each meeting or key points or however that is for the, to be distributed amongst the SHAC, so they could easily do that as well. And your comment about communication to the board is in us being, if we're not able to go or whatever, while they're online. The one thing I will point out is that in January, I'm almost certain it was January of 2023, the SHAC did ask for a liaison from the board, someone from the board to be a liaison that could be informed and share with the other board members information that was going on. So I will say
Did
that
I
that was
appoint
asked.
somebody to that?
Yes, you did. You appointed, you said, my appointment would be an employee of the district. You-
Dr. Upshaw.
Yes.
So what's the problem?
That's not a board liaison.
That
That
is a
that would
board.
be like,
She reports to the board.
that'd be like the people that are on the finance
She
committee,
comes
the
up to the
people that are
meeting and she
on the
reports to the
safety
board.
committee. I mean, it would be someone that is sitting in and a liaison.
anybody can be a liaison.
Anybody can
to
be
the
a
board.
liaison. I did it.
I
and
don't know where we get that one from.
I don't know either, but I will tell you that.
So let's wrap this thing up. From what I understand is you got a problem with the bylaws.
I do.
Ms. Gladys, you got some issues with the bylaws. Why don't you redact the bylaws? How long are the bylaws? How many pages is it?
Oh my gosh, they're like 9 or 10
Why don't you
pages.
redact it with the committee and make sure it's something that we can digest, is palatable to the board, get it down to 5, right? You can simplify it. I don't see why a committee that's advising the board needs 25 pages of bylaws. Get it down to 5. Work with the committee to do that. Bring it back to us. Make sure you're accepting it, and you want us to sign off on it, and we move forward. So I make that as a motion.
I would.
There's no motion.
There's no motion, but I would
Okay.
make a suggestion that we table this discussion until we hear back from the Attorney General with the
Nah,
clarification.
no dice. Just because y'all throw something down and say the
Yeah,
Attorney General and start throwing
absolutely
legal
not.
jargon around and saying y'all legal experts, that don't move the needle. Don't move it at all.
Yeah.
The School Health Advisory Council guideline for
don't
the
need
state
any more legal
of
stuff.
Texas is 48 pages long,
Well, good for
so.
them, but I don't need it.
Just
for
saying,
it for
our 8
SHAC
or
committee.
9
You don't
pages
speak
isn't
for the
that
whole
long.
board.
I said aye.
He said he. I'll also say that, Misty, you sent me that email on March 8th on a Friday. Yesterday, I responded back. Misty, thank you for your concern. We will not have outside counsel for this discussion item on Tuesday night. That was it. That's all I said.
I was referring to the January email that Dr. Spear emailed you regarding the bylaw discussions that were underway and that they were updating them. And she also asked for a liaison, if the board would appoint a liaison.
Ma'am, you were actually, you actually said I denied you all kinds of stuff. I didn't deny you anything. Okay, so please don't mince words on me.
That's fine.
All right.
So
I-
look, I'm requesting a document that you co-sign that can be presented to the board for us to review and potentially vote on. I'm not posing that as a.
I'm fine with that.
A vote
I'm
item or
100% fine with
anything. I'm saying that's what I'm requesting.
Is that,
Dr. Noel, that's what I'm requesting of Ms. Gladys. See how that works?
No, it
That's
would
all.
have, you could have made effect, go ahead.
Further
Move on.
to Mr. Williams' request, could you please also incorporate Teresa and my feedback on the info request and the transparency on goals and objectives and how that ties to the data being requested and how that request should make it from the SHAC into the district?
Just to be clear,
Can I just point out-
for her to work with you guys and these guys and make sure it's something that she signs off on. So
Yeah,
she's
I've
going to
said-
send us an email.
So for the record, I would like to say, you all just voted to approve a policy that does exactly what you're asking. In the consent agenda of tonight's meeting, you could have
Nobody understands what
Yeah,
Did y'all
with all
read
due
this?
respect,
Not a
I
clue.
don't.
Not a
Did
clue.
y'all don't read what's in the consent agenda?
No,
Of course.
So to my point,
keep it moving.
we're making uninformed decisions.
Hey, we're
We've been doing
not,
it for
we're
a
not
while,
talking
and it's
about
very
that. We're
successful.
talking about the bylaws for the SHAC. That's what we're talking about.
Ms. Chase, this is the policy, EHAA local, that our board just approved. That would, you could make your changes in here to do exactly what you're trying to do. And
Go ahead.
EHAA local is about the required instructional levels for students in schools.
Yeah.
Yeah. we
Nothing
kinda-
to do
we
with
kinda
Shack.
thought
No,
that,
it
but
outlines how
appreciate
we
you
receive-
pointing that out.
recommendations from the SHAC.
It talks about human sexuality and the permission parents have to give to receive that instruction.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That comes
But
from
that's
the
not
SHAC.
Shack.
But
You
it's
don't
just
understand
one little
it's not
piece of
Shack.
that.
So
It's
what
not-
policy are y'all asking Ms. Gladys to revise?
We're
Please tell
talking
me.
specifically about the SHAC bylaws.
The
That's
I
bylaws.
don't
it.
have a
That's it.
policy about
That's
the
it.
bylaws.
It's not
The
about
procedure.
policy.
It's not a policy.
It's not about
Procedural, we don't do
policy.
procedures, guys.
Oh,
Actually, we 100%, we set policies and procedures.
You
and-
telling me you don't trust Dr. Knoll?
Okay.
I'm not
You see
sure
how
where you're going
uninformed
with
we are?
this.
I-
I really am lost in your conversation. All I'm saying is we need,
let's go ahead,
I
go
I
on,
agree
man.
with what you're saying. We just need to wrangle in the bylaws for the SHAC committee. I want their input. I want the SHAC's input on this, but there are some things that are happening in the SHAC meetings that are affecting the actual SHAC committee and things that are happening. And I believe that we have the purview, and I spoke to the outside counsel, and I apologize if I misspoke about you having access, Ms. Oldenwiller. You don't have access, but I do, and I talked to our outside counsel, and our outside counsel said 100% you are well within your purview to set the bylaws for a committee that provides you with advice and counsel. So all I'm saying is let's put together a better SHAC bylaws, and I appreciate your recommendation to say, work with us, put something together, obviously include the liaisons and the committee chairs for the SHAC, because we definitely want their input on this. They did a lot of work, and we want to get their input and make sure that the work continues to move forward. However, wrangle this in.
Agreed.
That's all I'm asking.
I have
Put
one
it to bed,
request.
sir.
Ms. Gladys, will you please report back to us how many hours you spend on this task?
I will.
It'll be far less than what they're
No more
asking
than
these
these-
other people to
these
do. I
people are
promise
putting
you
folks
that.
through.
Promise you that.
President Hubert, I just want to say, like, there's obviously some very strong feelings
100%.
about the SHAC, which I don't necessarily understand. I think the attitude and the theatrics doesn't help with us getting to.
I agree. I agree.
So why do you bring it? Like, why are you
I
showing
didn't
up
bring
with it?
He had an attitude with me
Anyway,
hours
not
ago.
helpful, not helpful. I
Moving
think
on.
we would be best served to take the feelings out of this.
I tried my best.
Right, and try to get to a resolution. So thank you, Ms.
Very
Gladys,
good.
for
Moving
working
on,
on
we have
this.
executive session.
Oh, my goodness, okay.
Okay, the board will go into closed